Join us for a review of the BMW X1 facelift. Let's go! Please subscribe to us if you haven't done so far, that you check all of the latest car updates. Here, the BMW X1 facelift get this bigger double kidney. Yeah, all the new BMWs get that one or get a bigger one now. And here I think it does fit because it makes this smaller SUV look a little bit bigger, a little bit more grown up. So maybe you then have the feeling that when you have an X1 you get already something more. Here with a chrome frame around, and in this one here, the M-Sport model, it has those vertical dark fins inside. 4,44 meters, 175 inches or 14'5" is the length of the X1. The X3, for example, would be 27 centimeters longer. So this one definitely shorter, and you see the overhangs are not that long, and this front-wheel driven platform has the advantage that the front hood is actually small. Only maximum 4-cylinder engines, so 3 and 4-cylinder engines. Therefore you don't need this long front hood, and that makes the package, so exterior interior ratio, a little bit better definitely. This one here, the M-Sport model, also gets this M badge. Then you get 17 to 19 inch wheels. Those ones are the biggest 19-inch aluminum wheels, pretty nice in the M-Sporty style. Bigger brake disc as well. Then the Misano blue color again, here with the black frames around the windows. And you can also see the wheel arches here are painted in the vehicle color. This again will be different with the X-Line, where you have the wheel arches painted in the not painted in the crossover style, so just a plastic off-roadish look. Here in the rear, I think everything is very well proportioned. Some updates to the rear lamps right there, and also the LED daytime running light. Well, it's not a daytime running light in the rear, but sometimes I call it that way. Let's say the LED signature in the rear. Then the M-Sport has this shadow line, darker contrast in lower part, and those ones here are real exhaust pipes still. 2, so 1 on each side, X1 badge. What about engines? This one here is a 2-liter 4-cylinder with 231 horsepower. It's called 25i in Europe or 28i in US, but it's the same one. There you can see it here, twin power. And then there's also weaker petrol engines available, depending on the market. There's a 20i, 192 horsepower, or an 18i, then with xDrive, just front-wheel drive, 136 horsepower, that's a 1.5 liter. The other one's 2-liter turbo petrol engine. And all-wheel drive here works front plus rear on demand, so it's a front-wheel driven platform built in Regensburg, Germany, the X1 and the X2. And this one here, the 28 or the 25i with the xDrive, 6.5 seconds is the acceleration figure to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. There will now also be a PHEV, a 25e, with 9.7 kilowatt-hour battery, 50 kilometers of pure electric range. And there's a diesel range also, a small 3-cylinder, 116 horsepower front-wheel drive, and then the 4-cylinders, 150, 190 or 231 horsepower as this one. So the strongest diesel has the same acceleration figure approximately than this one here. M entry badge for the M-Sport model, and more blue accentuations. Yeah, that's of course my car with the blue accentuations. M steering wheel in a sportier style. Left side here for the cruise control, and the right side would be to pick up the phone or also to increase the volume. Seating choices differ a little bit from market to market. In Europe or Germany you also have base fabric seats, for example. They are also more open, so not accentuated like those. And then you have, for example, fabric choices. You also have then this sport seat. This is an option with more shoulder support, for example. That one also available in the fabric Sensatec combination, or also with some Alcantara inside. However, in the US, you get this sport seat here, this form as standard. You can only get the sport seats. And for the US, you can get full Sensatec. It would look the very same in beige and in black. This one, however, the optional animal skin equipment, which costs even more extras, but is of course not really necessary. And well, we can also make a test seating here, of course. The X3 is the bigger brother of the X1, and there you have a more upright, more SUV-ish seating position. This one here more a crossover style, so you don't sit too high. Now the interior overview. There you can see it's not a super all-new car, it's just a facelift. Therefore you have this rather old-school unit here in the middle part. Yeah, those rubber, frames around, that's not, good build quality, I think. But what is good, I like the classic climate unit somehow, because it's so easy to control it while driving, with turning and so on. And here the volume knob and some hotkeys you can also, set on according to your needs. Then nice blue accentuations here again for the M-Sport, also lower with blue contour stitches. Soft touch everywhere here also at the dashboard, high build quality. This M-Sport steering wheel with the shifting levers, that's also pretty nicely done. The instruments also somewhat old school, because they're a mix of analog and digital. Soon more deals to that. That's really funny when you see. And then there are two different sizes for the digital screens on the middle, just on the lower middle part available. Then the main infotainment unit, that's interesting also. A base one in Europe would start 6.5 inch, really small, no touch. Second size is 8.8 inch, so a little bit smaller than that. That would be the standard one for the US, also standard in US with the GPS. And then this one here is 10.25 inch, the biggest one available here, new with the facelift. All the systems, so 8.8 and also 10.25, get this software update here. The newest for this one is a 6.0. They don't get the 7.0 like the all-new BMW models, like new 1 Series, or also like the big BMWs. So you can see here, this is an analog-digital mix. Maybe you can see like the shadowed numbers, so they are actually already present, but then they're illuminated from the back. And there it is, the optional head-up display, your allowed speed, your speed, and also some GPS directions. That's pretty helpful, especially for this car. I really like that option. So this 6.0 system here does not have this "Hey BMW" input, so you see there's nothing happening, but you can press the voice button at the steering wheel and then, for example, drive me to Berlin.
Berlin, say yes, or select another entry from the list.
Yes.
Berlin was selected. Say start route guidance or add as intermediate destination.
So you can see here, this is a little bit more complicated than the 7.0 system, and the 7.0 system has, let's say, more choices as for the voice input, but at least you can already do something with, with your voice. Now, what about the rear compartment? Now it gets really interesting. Here, first of all, soft touch and also a nice structure at the inside of the rear doors. We hardly see that also in the lower or smaller segments. That's really a premium build quality. That's pretty cool. Also some new color choices and versions are available for the X1 facelift as for the interior, so you can spice it up a little bit more. Again, also a little bit depending from market to market. And then when I get inside right here, the thing is, I can fit here. There's also those gaps here at the front of the seat. It's not the longest car, but you can see you can drive this one with 4 tall adults. So what about the trunk? Liter figures are 500 up to 1,550 liters. And what does it mean? Of course, more flexible because it's higher than in the BMW X2, the counterpart. Some more space underneath, so you can very well use that one. It's actually a huge space underneath. I guess there should also be space for a replacement tire if you want one. And then really square dimensions. Welcome, guys. Oh, sorry. Well, that shows the performance of this smaller engine, although we have the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, which is the 25i in Europe, or called 28i in the US, but it's the same engine. Yeah, why do those naming differ? No idea, man. And definitely more than enough power for this car, and this one then also with all-wheel drive, so front plus rear because it's a front-wheel driven platform, but it was a nice accelerating out of the corner, although there's no rear wheel bias with this car. Still, that was pretty decent, and you always feel it when accelerating out of the corners. A rear wheel car, like a rear wheel drive car, will always have, a little bit more torque turn from the rear axle. That's not the case here, but enough is sent to the rear also to give you some more agile feeling, definitely. And we can also, let us drop back here, and then I show you some more of the acceleration for this engine, that we have the performance directly covered. So I'm in the sports mode, so the RPMs are turned up higher. The shifting is also a little bit different than from this automatic gearbox, and now I'm 30 kilometers to 100. I can then accelerate out. Let's go. And that's it. So I think that's really, now it's 80 speed limit, so that was very well timed. But we'll also get on the motorway and show you more about that. So that's really cool, and this M-Sport model is indeed a little bit sportier. You either get the fixed M-Sport suspension as standard when you go for the M-Sport, but here we have the adaptive suspension built in, which I would always go for if you want to spend the money. Either stick with the base suspension, for example, pick the X-Line or pick a base model or so. If there's one available in your market. M-Sport with a fixed suspension. We've driven that one in the X2, and it was really, really stiff. Very uncomfortable in everyday driving life. So you only pick that if you want that very stiff, rough feeling. If you don't want that, stick with base model, or then go for the adaptive suspension. As I said, in the US, you get only M-Sport and the X-Line, so then you either go for the X-Line, or when you go for the M-Sport, then you would opt for the adaptive suspension, which is doing a great job. So this adaptive suspension here, this is allowing you to have sportiness and comfort at the same time. Even here in the sports mode, it's still reasonably soft, so it's still it's fun to drive, but yet still comfortable. And then you can also vary it depending on the situation. Now getting on the motorway, quite a lot of traffic here, but we'll squeeze us through everything here. And with this car, it's actually also fun because it has a reasonable size. That's pretty cool. That's also one of the advantages of this small SUV here. So with other cars, you might, there's like traffic situations, do I fit in here and there? And this one is really compact, There's also a difference to the BMW X3. If you're thinking about X1 versus X3, the X3 is already, has this bigger front hood. Doesn't have the best package on the inside if you compare it to this one, because this one here is using the length better because it's a shorter hood. And again, for the X3, you can get also 6-cylinder engines. And you more have an SUV seating position. Here, it's something in between. It feels a little bit crossover-ish, so not like a high grown-up SUV, rather something in between. So it's not a big SUV feeling yet, but it's also not normal compact car. It's indeed in between, crossover style and so on. But I think it's good, you have a little bit more comfort, you have a little bit higher seating position than in a normal compact class car. So that's definitely already helping with the long-term comfort here. And now to our conclusion for today with the BMW X1 facelift. The front, definitely a little bit more characterful, a little bit stronger, more in the BMW lineup overall. It looks now more grown up, especially because of this bigger double kidney. In the inside, a little bit more refined, new color choices and so on, and infotainment system upgrades for all markets, although they differ a little bit, as I explained to you earlier. But I think still an interior that works very well, even nowadays. It's not a super new car, but this facelift really brought a little bit more refinement and brought it up to date. We also have some nice seating choices. It is not a super big grown-up SUV as for the driving feeling, but have a little bit more comfort than with a normal compact size car. And the exterior dimensions are actually quite, well situated, so you can still use it in the city a lot. And that's also what makes this car so successful. And also exterior versus interior, the ratio what you have for space available, the package as we call it here on Autogefühl, that is actually quite good. And also if you compare it to other BMW cars, this one here is among the best packages. That's also another success factor for this car. Driving-wise, flawless experience, especially with this adaptive suspension that brings comfort and sportiness both. The engine was really powerful, really cool, and of course it's not a rear-wheel driven all-wheel drive, but still you have a nice agile feeling. And the fuel consumption was quite decent. You can score as low as 6 liters on 100 kilometers or about 40 mpg US. And then if you use it, of course, a little bit more of this power, then rather towards 8 liters on 100 kilometers in an agile way, or rather down to 30 mpg US. But something in between is definitely a realistic factor. And that is, I think, also something very decent that again shows and it makes sense that the car is not too big and not too heavy. Yeah, the blind spot monitor is missing. That's the thing I would have liked with the facelift here. Other than that, cool head-up display you also have there as a safety or assistance system feature. So overall, it's, if you look at the price then, it's not a cheap car. BMWs are never cheap in a way. It's definitely the premium pricing as well. But it's one of their best offerings overall in the BMW model lineup. What's your take on that one here? Which one would you pick? I hope you would also pick the Misano Thomas Blue, right? So let's discuss this vehicle. Also tune in, for example, to BMW X2 review or the X3 to compare that or some competitors of this car. See you next time.